Hello, and welcome to the Eyes of Life show. I am your host, Lolo Schubert. And as we discussed last week on our second episode, we were going to be doing a re recording of our first episode show, which was called Who Were People Before Ethnicity Separation, Colonization, and Slavery? It was a great topic. Oh my God. Learned so much from reading this book by the late Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, writer of the book, The African Origins of Civilization, Myth or Reality. His book was published in 1974. Who was Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop? Dr. Diop was born in Senegal, Africa in 1923. At the age of 23, he went to France for advanced studies in physics. In 1966, the first World Festival of Arts and Culture held in Dakar, Senegal, Africa, honored Dr. Diop and W.E. Du Bois for his studies and as an anthropologist and Egyptologist. We're going to go over some stuff that I actually took notes on with reading his book, The African Origins of Civilization, Myth or Reality. Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, we're going to go over some of his accolades. He was a historian, he was an anthropologist, he was a physicist. He studied, oh my God, the studies of Africa civilization. He was sounds like an amazing person who did a lot of studies on Africa. So, who and what people were before ethnicity? Let's go over some notes that I had taken. Based on Dr. Dia, man was born in Africa near Kenya in the areas of Ethiopia and Tanzania and migrated to South Africa. Man was born in this region of the world could not have survived without a certain type of pigmentation in their skin called melanin. Based on this research, the first man creation was black. The creation of six species. That's what it was. It was six species that was created by the man above, by Christ, the creator, all our creator. The creation of six species. This is 9,000 years before Jesus Christ. 9,000 years before Jesus Christ. Wow. And man, as we know it today, according to Dr. Diop, scientific research, three of the species did not have the capability to leave the region, but the other three did leave Africa. But the fourth and fifth man disappeared. During his anti-nautical research, it was found the fifth species did not have a forehead and the brain was different than man today. Where did these species disappear to? And where did he or she go? Or what type of man were they? It was also found this type of man did not have an anterior lobe of the brain. What he did prove is that the six species survived in Africa. Let's just say his studies were phenomenal. Whereas for me, words cannot explain. His studies also determine how and what the human species are called in today's world, known as Homo sapien. Prehistorically, the black man was called the Cronaldi man. However, this is what man is called and known in our world that historically was identified as a black man. This was 49,000 years ago prior to man leaving Africa. So let's talk about this. So 49,000 years ago, okay, the black man was called the Crinaldi man. Now in today's world and all over the world, now everybody's called the Homo sapiens sapien, which is also the Crinaldi man. How is that? So let's think about it. So Homo sapiens sapien, prehistorically, the black man was called the Crinaldi man. However, this is what man is known in our world today, yet prehistorically was identified as the black man. Okay, so it was so I'm getting this that Homo sapiens sapien, Crinaldi man, black man, 49,000 years ago. Take it in, 49,000 years ago, prior to man leaving Africa. That's what the black man was called. But in today's society, in today's world, everybody's, all men is known as Homo sapiens sapien as well as the Crinaldi man. So yes, 49,000 years ago, man left Africa and went to a colder climate near Europe during the last glaciation time, or the final period, a time colder than what we know of today. For about 20,000 years, scientists call that man the cryomagnet man. So the cryomagnet man is what scientists call that man. This is due to the change and difference in their skin. This is how the white race creation became about. Let me just go back over that again. Okay. 49,000 years ago, man left Africa and went to a colder climate near Europe during the last glaciation time or final period, a time colder than what we know of cold today for about 20,000 years. Scientists call that man the cryomagnet man. So the cryomagnet man is what scientists call them. This is due to the change and the difference in their skin. This is how the white race creation began. So was Dr. Diop saying the white race derived out of the black man? Yes, that's exactly what he was saying based on his scientific studies. Okay, based on his scientific studies, it showed that all races derived out of man, which creation began in Kenya, which is where? In Africa. So if the man would have never left Africa, then there would be only one race of people, and there would be man in no other parts of the world. It will only be people of Africa, and everyone, and I mean everyone, based on his studies, would guess what? Be black. Every man would be black. So I know you're thinking, like, why man couldn't come from somewhere else on this earth? Dr. Diop used the same theories other scientists had used and polygenic. So other scientists use this theory called the polygenic theory. Okay, the polygenic theory. So, what is the difference between the two? Okay. What is the difference between these polygenic theories that these scientists during the 1800s and the early 1900s? What are some of these theories? There were two that they used. So let's go over some. The monogenic theory, the monogenic theory, man was born in one place. One source of man became different as he migrated to another climate. This was the meaning of this theory 45 years ago. So the monogenic theory 45 years ago, man was born in one place. One source of man became different as he migrated to another climate. Now, if you research the word monogenetic, the theory, okay, this is what it means today. The meaning talks about a pigeon and Creoles with a common origin. That's a big difference. A big difference. I'm like, okay, how you go from man becoming different as he migrated to another climate to talk about pigeons and Creoles 45 years later? Something they don't want to be told and found. So the polygenetic theory, man was born in multiple places in the world where man obtained their own origins. This was also the meaning of this theory 45 years ago. Now, if you research the word polygenetic theory, it has a similar meaning, saying traits is a characteristic such as height or skin color that's influenced by two or more genes. So, skin color, you know, but however, is it correct? So if you look at it, okay, you may say, okay, polygenetic theory, man was born in multiple places in the world, man was obtained, their own origins. So if man obtained their own origins, of course you're going to think, okay, we're different. But are we different? Okay, besides such as height or skin color that is influenced by two or more genes. I mean, to me, I would have thought, it's not much of a difference in what they're saying. But to me, the polygenetic theory made more sense because we think we are so different. But are we that much different besides our hair, in our eyes as well as our skin? Yeah, this would have you thinking the polygenetic theory is correct. But how many past scientist studies have shown nature creating things twice in the same place? How many? How many times lightning may have struck in the same exact spot? Not an inch to the left, an inch to the right, or smidget in the same exact space. Never. I've never known it, In my mind, I was like, okay, God, does not make sense. I've never known God to, make the same thing more than once. At least not that I have actually read or seen. So if we're all the same as, the same race or the same, we're not the same race anymore because of everyone went to a different climate. They talked about, the polygenetic theory, where we are talking about how different men may be. And the two different theories, the monogenetic theory, the polygenic genetic theory, which one is actually right? There's something we would have to really take a good look at and think, wow, which one should we think about? So I want you to think about this couple who was a white couple that came from uh, Britain, and they had settled in Africa back during the apartheid time. Okay, they were a white couple. Okay, and their names were Abraham and Sandy Lane. So Abraham and Sandy Lane were two white couples. Okay, they actually have a movie about this couple, because each one of this couple's children, all their children came out looking black. All their children came out looking mulatto. And the daughter, they literally kicked her out of school and labeled her as a black child. So how was it that these two white couples never cheated on each other? She never had intercourse with another man, only but her husband. But yet all her children came out looking mulatto. So as I was watching a movie, the scientists talked about the polygenetic theory. Of course, I was like, wow. Now that's something. The polygenetic theory, it's what they talked about. So that kind of blew my mind when I. Them say that. So all the studies on the species of man completed by scientists in this world, all past and present, have all shown the oldest fossils found of man was found in Africa. No place else. Africa. Were there older fossils discovered? Yes. Yes, there were some found in Asia called the Homo erectus, Neanderthal, and Homo sapien, and in Europe called the Neanderthal, Homo erectus, and sapien. These were some of man who migrated by the Suez Canal, who went to Asia, Eastern Europe, and some also migrated to Gibraltar, north of Europe. None of the fossils discovered predated the fossil found in Africa. This also rules out the polygenetic theory. So, based on what the polygenetic theory talked about, and these fossils found, none of them predated the fossils found in Africa. So the oldest fossil found was in Africa. So when scientists could not prove the white race existed before the African man, a British geologist named Townsend in 1912 allegedly accused of digging in the dirt, claiming to have found a fossil predating the existence of the black man. So this geologist named Townsend said in 1912, allegedly accused of digging in the dirt, claiming to have found a fossil predating the existence of the black man. His theory was supported by England and France. Britain was so pleased that this fossil predated the existence fossil of the black man Britain placed this fossil in its British Museum, thinking Dr. Townsend was correct. Until 1955, some 45 years later, an anthropologist professor named Oakley, who worked at the British Museum, discovered the fossil to be a fake. So this fossil that they had sitting up in the museum for 43 years, 45 years, the bottom line is they had this fossil sitting in the museum. And 43 years later, here comes anthropologist Professor Oakley, who worked at the British Museum now. He wasn't a professor outside of the British Museum. He actually worked for the British Museum, discovered the fossil to be a fake, and it was indeed false, and a fossil of a monkey. So, did they take the fossil out? It's never been found. It was never stated if the fossil was removed from the museum. So, my question is, if all this is known, if they know all this, then why is there so much hatred in the world when it comes down to race? Why was there slavery? Why was all the races besides the white race looked down upon? It's really mind-boggling to learn this. So, what did the Black race contribute to this world? From medicine to architect, math, all these things already existed before the Greek and the second and third dynasty. When someone asks you, is Egypt important to the Black race? Our answer should be yes. We are all from Egypt, all of us. By educating our people on this subject, I am not saying that the Black race, I'm not saying that it is superior to any other race. That's not what I'm saying. No race is what I'm saying. No race is superior. We are all equal. I don't care what your nationality is. We are equal. No man comes before another. I think if the truth was told, I believe if our schools would really teach the truth and educate on history and on ethnicity, the findings, I think we would have less hatred. I'm quite sure I know we will have less hatred because everybody will realize, hey, we all come out of Africa. It doesn't matter if you're white, Black, Asian, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Mexican. It does not matter. All the fossils found did not nowhere near predated the existence of the Black fossil that was found in Africa, the Black man. So I say this to you. We should stop hating one another. We should start looking at one another as equals because we are. So stop saying, go back to Africa, because we all come from there. Stop saying, why did you come to this? First of all, we didn't ask to come to this country. Secondly, we are not, and you are not, neither one of us are superior to another. So we all should get along. We should all respect one another for who we are. Because if you go back before ethnicity, if you go back before slavery, if you go back before the color of man changed, it's going to all take you back there. Don't take my word for it. Go buy the book. Go look up Dr. Diop. Look up the late Dr. Diop. There's so much knowledge out there about where the first man was created, where the first creation of man was, period. It's a lot of knowledge for us to be able to educate our children. So please, let's do that. I have barely touched the surface of the discoveries of Dr. Diop's studies and his books and teachings. It is because of all this missing information and much, much more not being taught in our school systems. This is why I plead with our people. Please begin educating our young people on the truth about our origins and the origins of this world. Because they're not being taught the truth. Believe it or not, educating your children starts at home. We should be teaching our children at home before preschool, before kindergarten, before the first grade. There's so many good shows out there, so many good books. Even if they're not old enough to read, you read to them. You'd be surprised what kids pick on or what they will find interesting, and what their parents will bring to them and what their parents will teach them. You would be surprised. So I hope you enjoyed this recording, and I hope our technical difficulties are now over. I truly apologize for our technical difficulties that we've been having with our Wi-Fi system. It's truly mind-boggling that you keep trying to get things fixed and it still be the same. But I hope you join us next week for our show. It's going to be based on, was Africans or the Black race in America before Christopher Columbus? Join us next week for this topic as we talk about some of the research and studies that I found based on this topic. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Yolo Schubert. Thank you, and you have